Having focus and direction for a corporation or even just anybody is so important. And in this video, I wanted to talk about Legend Story Studios and where I think they're focusing their attention, what they're doing, and how I think. Because I've made a bunch of videos, right? And I've talked about the good and I've talked about the bad and I've talked about their strategy, but I just wanted to sum it all up as what they're focusing on. Because at the end of the day, you only have a certain amount of hours that you can focus on different things and put your time and energy into. So, I want to first start off by talking about the things that I don't like about Flesh and Blood, things that I don't like about, what Legend Story Studios is doing in general. But then I know I know this is going to be sounding like I'm justifying or something, but then I really want to transition into why I believe that it's all good because of their focus. Now, something that I listened to recently was this really cool podcast, 7 Days of Flesh and Blood. And in there was this really awesome interview with James White. And to make everything that I'm going to say in the future make more sense and be credible, he said that with each set that they produce, it has a purpose. So he said, Welcome to Wraith or Wrath was all about setting the stage, showing the main four heroes and the mechanics of the game. They wanted to show the physical, the weapon part of the game, all of that physical stuff. Then with a Arcane Rising, he wanted to show, hey, this set is all about magic. It's introducing magic to the world of Wrath. So, and then Crucible War was more of a supplemental mechanic. I think he said it was more of a this is adding different pieces to the existing world, but also it's preparing for war. And then the next set, Monarch in 2021, that hasn't been released yet, is all about going to war, and that's the focus, and it's more of that. And I just thought it was brilliant. Like it's really cool how Legend Story Studios, they're not just saying, hey, we're making a set based on Mysteria because people love elves and elves are hot right now. Like they're not like, hey, what are our average consumer? What's the target market, being, right? No, they're not doing that at all. They're saying we love our realm, we love our history, we love everything, and we want to portray this in this set, this in this set, this in this set. It's very focus driven and it's very like direct and pinpointed at a certain realm. So that kind of gives credibility for what I'm going to say next. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, you've noticed that sometimes I'm pretty harsh, sometimes I'm really critical. Um, and I just love Flesh and Blood. I love what Legend Story Studios is doing here. They're making a fantastic product. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna have opinions, and I'm not always gonna be like you know positive Penelope. Sometimes I'm gonna be negative Nancy or negative Nate or whatever you want to call it. So my biggest concern about this game is just first off, it's how expensive the cards are. It's just when you have to get a tunic or when you have to get a legendary or some sort of higher expensive majestic cards to fill up a deck and your decks are like $500 to $700. I've talked about that in a previous video. It sucks, man. Like it shouldn't be that way where you have to spend a lot of money to be competitive. And that's I feel like my biggest drawback of this game currently in 2020. And another thing another thing I think is bad is I I just don't like how the products are designed currently. Now, I really like the starter decks of Welcome to Wraith. I think they did a great job because I love that type of product because you get it, it's $13 or $12, right? And you get a hero card with all the weapons and equipment you need and all the cards that you need to play a game. It is a pre-built deck. It is done. You take it out of the pack, you put it down on the table, and you can play the game. I love that. And what I don't like about the booster boxes is that you don't get all the pieces that you need to play the game in the box every single time. Now you might get all the pieces you need, maybe, I don't know, what, 60%, 50% of the time. You guys can comment below on that one if you want. But you can't argue with me. Sometimes you do not get enough pieces in the booster box to play the game. And to all you guys who want to just say, "Oh, well, Bronson, yeah, you do 80 or 90% of the time." Well, you don't get a competitive version of a deck. You don't get something that's even close to what you need to be like good at the game. And I feel like that's like one of my biggest concerns. Another thing is just like I was listening to a podcast recently from Outcast Haven. They're an amazing YouTube channel. Check them out. I'll definitely put the link below on that one. But yeah, they're just then they're really funny. Like they make these various different types of videos that I love. Like first is they make these podcasts, and I love just listening to podcasts when I'm doing other stuff, and it's great to hear their perspective on the game and what they see in the news for Flesh and Blood, and you can tell that they are extremely into the game and extremely focused on it, and I love that. And they also have these really cool videos where they're actually playing the game on Tabletop Simulator, and they're doing the game really fast because literally it takes right click and shuffle the game deck. It's a really great channel. But one of the podcast episodes they recently produced is about how the Nationals in New Zealand, the tournament didn't have any real video coverage, and I feel like that they brought up a great point because I was thinking the same thing. Like the New Zealand Nationals in what is it, September 2020? It was all Instagram pictures. And I will give Legend Story Studios this is that if you looked at the sidebar of the notes of the pictures, it did give you a pretty good rundown, a good play by play. I will give you guys that, but I really want to see some video, like any type of video at all, even like the final, because the Matt Rogers, that deck looked really cool. It sounds like he really created an awesome type of like aggro type, but also control deck. And I think he said he likes to block a lot with cards and wait for his time and then pump out a bunch of damage with dash. So it seemed like a really cool thing to watch. I know that would have gotten a lot of views and people would be hyped. And man, I really think that that would have been cool. So I mean, I really would like to see more like action in the game, like seeing like different videos to play. And I think the last thing I want to bring up, well, we'll see. I'm just rambling now, but I think that over time, as more sets come out, there's going to be more like majestic and legendaries, and it's just going to compile and compile and compile and compile. There's going to be a more card variety that you can pick from. So my main concern is why not just pump a bunch of rares or majestics or legendaries in your deck? You could have like a full armor set of legendaries, and that would be ridiculous. And also, armor is ridiculous, guys. Like, what's up with this tunic? Like, some of the legendary cards are just too good for the heroes, and yeah, I mean, just the cards, but also the types of cards, like the common cards, aren't really as useful for you know, certain types of play. I feel like those can be drawn upon, and I'm really worried that in the future, like a lot of the old cards just won't have too much like usage since you if it what is it 6 years down the line you're gonna have so many new rares, so many new majestics. Why aren't you gonna just use all rares, all majestics, and keep out your commons? So I have a concern about that too. And there's a lot of things about the game that really are concerning to me. But at the end of the day, I made another video. Now I'm gonna shift. So first I talked about what my concerns are about the game and all my negative. I was a negative Nancy. Now I'm gonna be positive Penelope the rest of the video. So I made another video recently that talked about how Legend Story Studios is doing demonstrating value 2020, and they are going to what is it? Ah! They're basically going to uh, try to get more people into the game in 2021 uh geez, this E I know it was a Dennis System video, but basically they're going to try to increase their market share and their player base next year, which I definitely think is going to happen. And that is just one of my theories. But when I heard James recently saying, "Hey, we have sets. They have different objectives, right?" And then in that interview, he also said stuff about the war is coming, and then he said stuff about like the game mechanics shouldn't change even though it's going to be based off the lore. So it really made me think that they're really going to try to get people involved, do different events, have more fun. And I feel like that type of focus is so important and so smart for them. So I'll address like the collectability. They're releasing the unlimited set. We all know this. I know I sound like a broken record. That's going to help out with giving the players the cards they need. I don't know if it's going to be totally good, but I know that that is going to be helpful for the players that need the card. I also want to say that I think one of the most popular versions of the tournaments of these decks are aggro. So I feel like things like the Faendal's Tunic and cards that help you long game, I feel like there's going to be other cards where people build around more aggressive and fast decks to make that Tunic useless. And that's what I'm really looking forward to. And I think also they've started to make cards that destroy equipment. The Mechanologist has this, and the Guardian has this. They have a couple cards, and I really like that. Having cards that like destroy your opponent's armor, I could definitely see a bunch of lower like cost effective decks running a bunch of armor destruction to kill off those higher tier player decks, higher cost decks, because that's a really good strategy too. They can't use their tunic if if you slice it off their chest. So I feel like they're gonna make more of that kind of stuff in the future, and they're going to make it so they don't make cards that are as good as the tunics, that are as good as those what is it? The mechanologist one, all those legendary chest equipment, what have you. They're going to make cards that defend against that and kind of counter that. I think that that's a real direction that they're gonna go. Because if they make like, let's say they made Bronson's tunic, and it had a very similar effect or even better effect, then it would then it would devalue the original legendary tunic. You couldn't make a common tunic that is better. You just can make cards that kind of have a different strategy that kind of counters it. So I feel like they're gonna do that, and I think that that is really going to bring the prices down of all these cards, printing an unlimited edition, and they're most likely going to print it for 1 or 2 years. I mean, we don't know. I asked them on their Twitter, "Hey, how long are you guys going to print this thing?" And they said, "Hey, we're still in the works on that one." Uh, well, that is not what they said. I'm paraphrasing there, obviously, but they did not give a straight answer. But they said it's not determined at this time. From what that I'm reading into this, but from what I hear of that is it's all going to be about demand. So if 30 million cards are needed, they're going to print that many. If 40 million cards are going to be needed, they're going to print that many. It's about they're first going to like print a bunch, hold it, sell it off, and then wait until it sells off, and then print another batch, sell it off, and they're going to do it in a bit. And that's just theory and speculation. And I feel like that's really going to solve that one issue. But the other issue with the whole getting visuals and recordings of the events, I think that that's going to come. And honestly, knowing Legend Story Studios, they are a tight knit group, and I feel like their focus is trading card games. And I feel like if there was a, they're really being smart on this one by like not focusing on that in 2020. It's all about collectability, and it's about just getting the strategic part of the game done and showing people that it is a strategic chess-like game, that it is cool, and it's really has depth in the mechanics, and also money wise. Next year, they are going to focus on all that stuff. Maybe they're going to make deals with certain streamers to commentate on the games. Maybe they're going to reach out, branch off. Maybe they're going to hire a bunch of new crew, like a 6-person team who is just like the media department of Legend Story Studios. I definitely can see that, as their name is Studios. So they also will have, like, that type of department under them. But you have to give it to them that, like, and that kind of alleviates my fear on that. And I just want to leave it off with an analogy that I've been thinking too. It's like Legend Story Studios is making wine, right? Right now, they've taken in all the grapes and they've mashed them up and they've put them in a barrel and they're waiting, right? So it's still fermenting. It's still in the works, guys. And if you taste it now, it's gonna be a little bitter. Bronson's gonna have a little bit of complaints about the taste of this wine, the taste of the game. It's not as what I want it to be, right? But I know in my heart, from what I've seen and what I've heard, it's gonna taste better with time. And as time moves on, they're going to focus on other things. They're not worried about bottling the wine. They're not worried about marketing the wine. They're not worried about anything else other than making really good wine at this moment because they have amazing focus. In 2021, maybe they'll worry about bottling the wine. Then then later, maybe they'll worry about marketing the wine, but it's all about that focus. And I I came to realize this recently, and that is my feelings currently as of the end of Q3. Oh, wait. Yeah, end of Q3 2020 for Legend Story Studios, and how their focus is. And I have to say that I might be positive going forward in my other videos with this logic, because I know that right now everything isn't perfect, but it's good that it's not. Because I'm going to give you another example. If there's a wine manufacturing company and they worried about, like, gathering the grapes, putting it in the thing, marketing, and they what is it? Looked into the bottling and the manufacturing and the label and the printing and, like, all these extra things. Well, while they're doing that, well, maybe they screwed up on processing the grapes and putting in the barrels, and they were sloppy with that because they didn't have enough time. You only have a limited amount of time, so they were sloppy with the putting barreling all the grapes, and now your wine's gonna taste bad, right? Because you just didn't do as good of a job you could have, because you did, like, mediocre in a bunch of things instead of doing amazing in one thing. And that's what they're doing. Legend Story Studios is just bottling or getting those grapes and they're processing it and putting it in the barrel in 2020, and they're focusing entirely on that. And that really makes me feel really confident about their future. And I'm just really interested at how it's all going to play out. Let me know what you guys think. I know this was a longer form video, and you heard me ramble a lot and make little metaphors, but hope you enjoyed, and have a good one.